Hej! Jag heter Jenny och välkommen till Fridhemskyrkans sommarserie där vi i år kommer prata 10 söndagar om JESU liknelser. Och jag tänker ju att Jesus är en av världens största influencers genom tiderna. Han talade inte bara till människorna i sin samtid, utan han talar även till oss idag. Och det Jesus pratade mest om genom sina liknelser, det var Guds rike. Han ville få sina lyssnare att förstå att det fanns en annan verklighet, att Guds rike också fanns närvarande. Och de här liknelserna som Jesus ger, de handlade om vanliga saker. Om att baka bröd eller att så ett frö, om att förlåta någon eller att tappa bort pengar. Och det var vanliga teman som Jesus tog upp, det var inget konstigt med det. Men samtidigt så ville han få lyssnaren, både då och nu, att inte bara läsa berättelsen rakt upp och ner, utan också att reflektera kring den. Att fundera, vad var det faktiskt som han menade med den. Och många gånger så provocerade han också genom att ge de här liknelserna. Att kanske ifrågasätta det många var helt tvärsäkra på, för att nå djupare om Guds rike. Så den här sommaren så kommer vi ägna 10 veckor åt att tillsammans försöka förstå vad det är som Jesus säger genom sina liknelser. Och vad det är han säger om Guds rike. Och vi har bett 10 personer i församlingen att dela sina tankar kring de här berättelserna. Och vi tror att Bibeln är Guds ord. Och ytterst sett så tror vi också att Jesus vill tala till oss genom de här liknelserna. Och att han bjuder in oss att öppna våra öron och lyssna noga. Han bjuder in oss till att reflektera och inte alltid vara så säkra på att vi redan har förstått allting som står i evangelierna. Och han bjuder också in oss att se oss själva i de här liknelserna. Och att upptäcka att en annan värld, ett annat rike, att Guds rike är möjligt här och nu. Så varmt välkomna att hänga med.
Jesus told his disciples there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer." The manager said to himself, "What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses." So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, "How much do you owe my master?" 800 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 400. Then he asked the second, "And how much do you owe?" 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, "Take your bill and make it 800. The master commanded the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings."
Hi, I'm Jeremy. The story of the shrewd manager, or the dishonest steward, as it's sometimes called, has got to be one of Jesus' most confusing parables. On the surface, it appears to be about a man who cheats his boss and then is commended by him for being a liar and a thief. One might be tempted to think that this is the example that we are to follow, but that's not only too simplistic, it's contradictory to the teachings of Jesus. This parable is so multi-layered, and we need to dig beneath the surface to discover the true meaning of this parable. Now, one of the reasons that this parable is so confusing is because we are so far removed from the culture that this parable was first told to. They would have understood certain cultural codes that are completely foreign to us. For example, this story takes place in an agrarian society where the role of master and a slave was commonplace. Perhaps if we were to try to understand this parable in our own context, the story might look something like this. Max is a manager for a large company who has been told that he is going to be replaced due to a conflict of interest. Now, before his time is up, he makes several very large donations to charities without the authorization of the CEO. It also just so happens to be that the charities that he donated to are looking for a new manager. Now, the story explodes in the press, and the company is given an award for business philanthropy. In a press conference later, the CEO thanks Max for his lasting contributions to the company's work and says that he will be missed. But let's go back to our original story here. We need to know that when the master tells the manager to turn in the account, he's talking about the account books. And this means he's fired on the spot. Now, the manager could have done differently. He could have imprisoned the manager or had him sold into slavery along with his family in order to get the money back that he has lost. And this wouldn't have been crazy. The listeners of this parable might have expected one of those two responses. But instead, the master shows mercy to the manager and only fires him. And that's worth taking note of. Now, all that the manager does after that point, he does without any authority. And this is also important to note. The story takes place in a society where honor and shame are the most important values. So when the manager comes up with his sneaky plan, he makes sure that everyone receives honor in some way. Those people who owed massive amounts of goods to the master, they had no idea that the manager had been fired, so they couldn't be accused of scheming against the master. In that way, they keep their honor. The master, of course, gains tons of honor in the eyes of the community, as he has now just become the most generous man to do business with. And the manager gains some honor and some respect in that he has made a ton of new friends, and he is the face of this generous business deal. When he gets found out, and he will, he has made some friends, and they will be able to see his intelligence and his boldness, and will probably take care of him and offer him work. This is to say, you keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. Now, the discounts that the debtors got, they were enormous. So they're going to go their way and celebrate the good news. Meanwhile, when the master gets his account books and sees the changes made to them, he's faced with two choices. The first choice is to go back to the debtors and require them legally to pay back what they owe. This would not add to his honor. His other option is to stay quiet, to swallow his losses, and allow the manager to go as a free man. And he keeps his honor as being a generous businessman. This is, of course, what he does. And then he commends the manager for his smart move. Now, we need to note that the dishonest manager was commended for his cleverness. not the clever manager commended for his dishonesty. The manager's moral behavior is far from exemplary. But this was a daring plot. If it went wrong, the manager would end up without a place in the community. And maybe at worst, he could be imprisoned or turned into a slave. He put all of his plan, it rested on the fact that he knew the nature of the master. He put all of his trust and hope in the fact that the master would act mercifully and generously towards him. And he went all in on that. Now that is the action that we need to take note of. That's our example. Like the manager, we need to know the character of the master and put our full hope and trust that our master is generous and merciful towards us. Let's go all in on that. Now Jesus finishes the parable by saying the following. He says, "The children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than with the children of light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings." Now, what Jesus is saying here is that those who only consider this life put a lot of time and energy into securing a future for themselves. And like the manager in our story, they often do that quite intelligently and successfully. But their security is short-lived because it lasts only for this life. Meanwhile, those who believe in a life after this one tend to be so casual about investing in it. In this parable, Jesus is encouraging us to observe how cleverly people invest in their future and encourages us to do the same. The only difference is that we are to invest in things that have eternal value. Jesus makes it very clear, both in this passage and in the passages leading up to this one, that money and worldly goods do not last. In Luke 12:33, he says that we are to sell our possessions and give to those who have need. And in doing so, we will receive a treasure in heaven that can't be destroyed by rust or moth and can't be taken by thieves. And in Proverbs 19:17, it says that whoever is generous to the poor is lending to the Lord, and the Lord will repay him for what he has done. So instead of focusing your money and your resources to achieve short-term security for yourself, Jesus calls us to invest in people and use our money to meet the needs around us. If and when you find yourself in need, you will have invested in a network of people who will care for you in a similar way. And not only that, you will have invested in your eternal home. Now, I'm not saying that our money is going to be the thing that buys our salvation. That is a pure gift. But Jesus does say that where our money is, there will our heart be also. Therefore, we need to be very wise about where we put our money and our resources, because it has the power to change the orientation of our hearts. Let's orient them towards eternity.
Varje steg jag tar är du med mig. Aldrig Jesus Kristus, du är min trygghet, helt säker i din famn. Jesus Kristus, du är min framtid, mitt hopp är i ditt namn. Jesus Kristus, du är min trygghet, helt säker i din famn. Jesus Kristus, du är min framtid, mitt hopp är i ditt namn. Stor är din trofasthet, Jesus, stor är din trofasthet, Jesus, stor är din trofasthet. Alla dagar är du med.
If you're watching this today, the 15th of August, we want to welcome you to come join us in Kronobergsparken at 4 o'clock. We're going to meet directly across the street from Fridhemskyrkan, which is Bergsgatan 59. In the park, we're going to talk more about this parable, and also we're going to have a picnic together, so bring something to eat, and we'll enjoy some time together. But before you go, please receive the blessing of God. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face to you and give you his peace. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.